Consistent across most academic accounts of workers' experiences is the idea that if workers can find dignity or meaning in their work, then they tend to be more productive. But despite knowing this for centuries, many people suffer in the workplace, and that has negative consequences not just for the employees, but also for the employers. In essence, this paper is about trying to understand why people respond differently to different forms of control. It starts with the premise that organisations need to control their workers to ensure their success and their survival. And in the paper, I look at two particular forms of control. Bureaucratic control are the rules and regulations that enable organisations to run. So for example, division of labour or a hierarchy. Normative control is a bit more subtle, and that's about the way organisations control the insides of people, so their beliefs, their ideas, and their identities. And what wasn't clear in the extant research is why people respond differently to those two forms of control being used at the same time. So in the paper, I established two key dimensions that help us understand this variation. The first dimension is compatibility. One end of the spectrum of compatibility would be people who find their work fulfilling through the modes of control. At the other end of the spectrum, we would have suffering. The second dimension is the dimension of coherence. So at the most extreme end, we would have modes of control that are unified and reinforce one another. And at the other end of the spectrum, we would have modes of control that are fragmented or separate from each other. If we draw together the two dimensions of compatibility and coherence, that creates four different ideal types or ideal ways of explaining the variation across workers' experience of multiple modes of organisational control. This research shines a light on what causes and conditions people experience of fulfilment and suffering. I think it's really important to understand how their suffering plays a role in the behaviour, the success and survival of organisations. And if we can understand those sources of suffering, then perhaps we can begin to address them.